There are, of course, RPGs that everyone knows for the Game Boy Advance, and I've talked about them in another video. But for this video, I want to focus on some more obscure titles, those possible hidden gems. Maybe you know a few, maybe you don't, but I'm confident you'll find some RPGs you'll love on this list of the other Game Boy Advance RPGs. I'm sharing these games in the order of least obscure to the most obscure. Let's go. Riviera, The Promised Land. You know it's going to be a pretty obscure list if Riviera is the most represented title on the list. It's actually the only one I could really find estimates of sales for, coming in at around 100,000 units total sold. Ooh, that's not good. RPGs seem to often be about how much developers can just cram into a cart, but this one is sort of minimalist, I guess I would call it, maybe? But it still retains meaning, and my hour spent with it really surprised me. I thought I was playing a budget game when I first started, and I started a bit disappointed. But the more time I spent with it, the more I was impressed. Released for the Game Boy Advance in 2004, Riviera from Sting Entertainment and published by Atlas doesn't overwhelm you with a huge map or a ton of side quests. Instead, again, it takes a very straightforward approach and tells you a story in a bit of a claustrophobic design. It's a little confining, it's a little restricted what you can do in this game. You play as Ein, a grim angel who's been sent to the floating continent of Riviera to oversee the destruction of a world on the brink of ruin. Easy enough, right, you would think, but things aren't so simple. Riviera in this game is a paradise. It's a paradise that's haunted by memory, beauty, and divine bureaucracy, I guess you would call it, as the angels are trying to figure out how to deal with it. Now, this is my understanding of the story thus far. The opening shows you how Ein's mission quickly becomes a question of loyalty to the angelic party, I guess, and a question of duty and identity. Basically, you start as an angel on a specific mission, but before you even hit the 1 hour mark, you're questioning your mission. Are we actually angels, or are we something a little more sinister than that? The way Riviera is set up is rather interesting. It sort of feels like a mix between a traditional turn-based RPG, a dungeon crawler, and a visual novel. You don't wander towns in traditional sense or grind through random encounters, at least not in the traditional sense. Instead, each screen becomes a bit of a slideshow, something you investigate, you click through, and make choices in. You don't even really navigate your character around the screen fully. You pick a direction on the D-pad, and that determines how you interact with the screen. Moving between screens is intuitive enough, but then there are trigger points. You earn these trigger points in battle, and this allows you to open chests, look around at special things on your screen, investigate alternate paths or points of interest. It's a little odd at first, but maybe what they were going for is restraint and choice, which seems to be a running theme in this game. Now, if restraint and choice are a theme in this game, it continues with the combat. You can only bring a few items into battle, and each has limited uses. Yeah, your weapons will literally break if you use them too much. But as a person who didn't mind this in Breath of the Wild, I really have no issue with this. I guess Fire Emblem is sort of also tempered for this. I mean, this setup certainly builds tension, and I can appreciate that tension. It makes every encounter matter. You can't just brute force your way through Riviera. Definitely not. You have to plan, anticipate, and adapt. I actually think it's an impressively deep turn-based RPG for the handheld. Before I got the opportunity to, I guess, quote-unquote grind in the game, I found a fight that had me going back to the drawing board over and over, trying to figure out how to approach it. And it actually didn't make me angry because of that. I really enjoyed it. Riviera's gameplay is surprisingly enjoyable. At first I didn't think I would like it, but I forced myself to keep going beyond the introductory moments, trying to understand why so many people seem to enjoy this game. And I found it. Now, when I played this game, I emulated it on a large PC screen, but the GBA's tiny screen must have been bursting with these beautiful hand-drawn images, these soft colors, and these delicate animations. What the game lacks in autonomy of moving your character, it makes up for with incredible and beautiful art and an impressive style. The soundtrack fits so well. It's sort of celestial, I would argue, reminding you constantly that this is a heavenly matter. The game also includes some dating sim sort of aspects, and, I honestly don't really care about that sort of stuff in these games, but I do have to admit that it added some emotional sincerity behind each of Ein's relationships. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because some might call this a bit of a harem. It's enjoyable, though, to see the characters interacting. Riviera is a game about the end of the world, but it's more than that. It's a game about whether the end is, even deserved. It refocuses from the macro sense of the world needs to end and focuses on the people involved in the world at the micro level. Yeah, it's another game about preventing the end of the world, which is pretty tropey and cliche, but it does a great job focusing on the little things like the characters and their relationships to make the end seem actually tragic. Basically, it gives you a world worth fighting for. If you can get past the initial shock of still picture backgrounds that you investigate, then you'll find a really impressive RPG. The game was built for the WonderSwan first, but then for the GBA, and then for the PSP, and now it has an HD release that you can find on Steam and Switch. If there's other releases, of course, let us know in the comments. I played this for the GBA, obviously, and I think that version is absolutely enjoyable as well. This next game was much more popular in Japan than it was in the US, and when you see it, it's going to make a lot of sense. It got trading cards, it got TV shows, but we didn't get any of that. We got 2 games total in this series, with none of the flourishes. I'm talking about DemiKids, light version and dark version. Do you ever lay awake at night thinking, man, what if Shin Megami Tensei had a children's version? Well, question no longer, friends, because it exists. What an odd concept to share. When you first look at this game, you might see the parallels to Pokemon, as you probably should. It did have a light version and a dark version released simultaneously, like Pokemon games often do. But I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Megami Tensei did Pokemon before Pokemon did Pokemon. So there. Anyway, underneath the colorful sprites and Saturday morning energy, Demon Pokemon carries the same DNA as Megami Tensei. It has moral complexity, mythic creatures, and a story about the cost of wielding power. Ain't that crazy for a kid's game? Known as Shin Megami Tensei Devil Children in Japan, it's not surprising why they changed it to DemiKids in the West. The premise sounds pretty simple, but it's more complex than you might have originally thought. Though it probably goes without saying, it's not a Pokemon clone and thus a Megami Tensei clone. You play as Mr. Black in Dark version, which is the version I played. I figured I was already playing a game called DemiKids about summoning demons, so I might as well go for the Dark version. In for a dime, in for a dollar, I guess. Your character is from the city of Mirage, and you stumble upon the Demi Labyrinth, a gateway to the demon world. If I'm not mistaken, it might actually be like a library or a high school or something, and that checks out. There, you're granted the power to summon and fuse demons, just like you would see in Megami Tensei for the Famicom long before Pokemon. Just to drive that point home a little further. Your character quickly finds himself caught in a war between heaven and hell. What begins as a youthful adventure morphs into something much stranger and darker as the hero confronts questions of morality, destiny, and the thin line between good and evil. Again, holy moly. Each version offers a different perspective of the story. I honestly sort of expected it to just be different monster possibilities like Pokemon, so you know what, shame on me. It's actually 2 different stories that intertwine. That's my experience, that's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. Light version focuses on Akira's quest to protect humanity and find harmony, while Dark version follows Mr. Black's descent into the moral gray areas of leadership and control. I went with the moral gray areas of leadership and control. In for a dime, in for a dollar. Gameplay mirrors Atlus's traditional turn-based structure. Players collect demons through negotiation or combat, fuse them to create stronger allies, and build teams that focus on exploiting enemy weaknesses. The fusion system is really simple, and it allows you to see what the creature is you'll be making before you even complete the fusion. And I really appreciate this. When the system is as simple as this, I don't mind it. You can even see if the stats are going to work out. You might fuse 2 demons and get a bit of a crapper, but you can see the stats and see if it is actually worth fusing your creature. To that extent, you can even see what the creature will look like if that matters to you, and you know what, it does matter to me. But the sense of experimentation through this system remains. Every time you manage to charm a monster into your party, the temptation is to see what you can fuse it into. Battles demand strategy, particularly early on, and one of the criticisms I later read about the game is that the opening is difficult, but it becomes easier later on. I have to say that I agree with this criticism. While Pokemon focuses on nurturing, DemiKids emphasizes consequence. Demons aren't pets, but entities with personality, sometimes resentful, sometimes loyal, and sometimes unpredictable. And you can see this when you're trying to catch it as you're negotiating with the monster to join your team. Like Pokemon, there is a threshold on them helping you. I didn't have the level to support using this huge monster that I cheated my way to get in the casino. I thought I was about to smash through this game because I was being clever. But it turns out that your character levels up too, and this is what determines which monsters you can use, kind of like you have to check your power level against their power level. The game has a very innocent look, sort of even like the Mega Man Battle Network in the beginning. But the dialogue is almost always pretty wild. DemiKids doesn't shy away from just laying it out there. Come on, we need to go visit Lucifer! Like, what? I'll take things I didn't expect to hear in a kid's game for 100, Alex. The narrative explores creation, free will, and the duality of light and darkness, all distilled into a format accessible to younger players. It's one of the rare GBA titles that manages to entertain while introducing ideas about moral choice and spiritual tension. for kids. Visually, even though it has such a mature theme at times, DemiKids is bright and inviting. The sprite work looks good, particularly with the in-battle monsters. The monster designs bridge cute and intimidating pretty well. The soundtrack, composed by Tsukasa Masuko, keeps the tone adventurous while carrying faint echoes of the eerie Megami Tensei soundscape. It's great. The dual-world structure, flipping between human society and demon realms, gives a sense of scale similar, again, to the Mega Man Battle Network setup, but maybe even a little more robust. I'll let you be the judge of that. DemiKids was destined to be a niche title. Released when Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire dominated handheld RPGs, it struggled to find a broad audience. The series had been going since the Game Boy Color in the year 2000 in Japan, but it hadn't found success over here and never quite did. In Japan, the series got a trading card game, a couple of anime series among other things, but its darker ideas and sometimes punishing difficulty felt out of step with its cheerful box art. And I'm sure Western audiences, and parents in particular, weren't incredibly sold on the concept, and that's a shame really. Maybe. I think. I'm fairly confident that I would let my children play this game, but I would definitely want to talk to them about the concepts of, light and dark and, good and evil in the world. Maybe it's a game that just requires a little parental guidance, and that's okay. But I think I would not want them to play it without parental guidance. Still, as a somewhat adjusted adult, I have to say that I think this game is an absolute hidden gem. And that's probably because we forget that even games aimed at younger players can carry the weight of myth and morality and intricate themes. It's not a perfect game, obviously, and the difficulty is certainly part of that. But I think it manages an awesome balance that makes it certainly more than a Pokemon clone, that's more than a Megami Tensei clone. This next game has no reliable sales numbers that I could find, but I do know that it has been released several times, so we're going to go solely on that it is a little more popular than the last game on this list. This next game has a really weird title too, and maybe that led to a little bit of the downfall for it. Either way, the game I'm talking about is Yggdra Union Will Never Fight Alone. Yggdra Union Will Never Fight Alone released for the Game Boy Advance in 2006. It was developed by Sting Entertainment, the same studio behind the cult hit Riviera: The Promised Land. I knew I recognized that art style from somewhere. Yggdra Union took a tactical RPG setup and reshaped it into something a little more unique, and something that I would argue is a little more fun. It's a familiar setup if you've played a few other games like Ogre Battle or Master of Monsters, Dragon Force, all sort of different games on their own, but it's certainly an excellent combination of all of these ideas. As a point of support for the setup, I think I like it more than Dragon Force, but I feel like I may have a better grasp of Dragon Force after playing Yggdra Union. It's a chess-like, card-driven war game infused with anime melodrama, political intrigue, and a surprisingly enjoyable, if tropey, story. It is one of the boldest tactical titles on the handheld, and while it never achieved mainstream fame, with a name like Yggdra Union, right? It is still one of the Game Boy's most robust strategy experiences. Yggdra Union tells the story of Princess Yggdra Uriel Artwaltz, the last surviving heir of a fallen kingdom overrun by the Empire of Bronchia. Fleeing her homeland with nothing but a fat sword and her will to fight, she bands together with a ragtag group of local thieves to reclaim her throne and restore justice to the war-torn land. It's a tale of resistance, even to the point of building a liberation army. It has some meat to it with some melancholy, mature themes, and moral ambiguity. Sort of like you might see in Fire Emblem, or Ogre Battle, or even Final Fantasy Tactics. Basically, my point is that it's a little more involved than Advance Wars story-wise, but probably not as much as Final Fantasy Tactics, to be fair.
That's a different story altogether.
Story-wise, it's a difficult question about the cost of loyalty in a world where heroism and vengeance might be on the same coin. The question is whether you will fight to unite for universal peace, or will you fight to unite under another set of ideals? And this is the question that is answered by your gameplay in this world. Instead of the usual grid-based combat in a field or whatever, battles happen across the grid on a sprawling map, where each turn represents a clash between small armies. You move units as unions, groups of soldiers linked together based on formation and direction. Hence the title, Yggdra Union. Positioning and leadership matter more than raw strength, and that is awesome. If the leader of your army is male, then all the characters that are in an X formation will assist in the battle. If your leader when attacking is female, it's a cross. The enemies work the same way, so again, positioning in this game is huge. A single misalignment can mean the difference between victory and defeat, and this forces players to think several turns ahead. Now, if this wasn't complex enough, there's a card system. I used to hate card systems in games, but I'm starting to warm up to them a little bit. I'm not looking for them per se, but I'm not actively avoiding games that have them anymore. That has to count as progress, right? Each card in this game represents power, a unique skill, and a movement allowance, meaning that choosing a card each turn affects not only what you can do in battle, but how far your troops can travel. You're sometimes forced to make difficult decisions, weighing whether it's worth it to burn a powerful attack card early for an immediate advantage, or save it for the boss fight later in the map. If you run out of cards in battle, you lose the fight. In the opening hours I played, I never ran out of cards, so it's not too pressing, or at least early on it's not. What this means though is that every decision carries weight. And because card effects are often tied to specific character weapon types, building your army deck-like thing is a task all of its own. The game's presentation absolutely blows me away. It is so incredibly stylized. Its pixel art is vibrant and detailed, but it's impressively clean for such large GBA sprites. This is accentuated by elaborate battle animations and a gorgeous UI. The character portraits are absolutely beautiful in this game, much like in Riviera. It certainly has a style to it, and I am here for it. The soundtrack is fantastic. I can't say much more than it's one of the best out of the games that I've listed here. It's wildly enjoyable. I mean, it's the music that you're listening to in the background while you're watching this part of the video, so if you like that, hey, you like the music in this game. I want to concede and say that Yggdra Union isn't for everyone. It's a little complex, in my opinion. It can be pretty difficult, demanding precision and real tactical foresight. There's no grinding your way out of a mistake here. Only better planning and hard-earned adaptation, which is something I can appreciate about the game for sure. Each battle just takes place back to back, and so you're leveling up and earning experience along the way, but by my understanding, there simply isn't a way to easily grind. If you like your tactical games tense and don't mind retrying the battle a few times, this may be right up your alley. I'd argue Yggdra Union is a thinking person's wargame, wrapped in a beautiful, tragic story about leadership, sacrifice, and what it means to fight for what you believe in. On the Game Boy Advance, few games dared to be this tactical, this emotional, or this unrelenting. And, not to get too preachy about it, but victory is about unity. This game was good enough that we got several ports of it too. It was also on the PSP, and it was released on Windows and Switch as well. It may be best to play on a newer console, but I had a blast playing on the Game Boy Advance version that I emulated on PC, which made it easier for me so I could rewind. I like to make up for my lack of tactical brilliance with a little tool I like to call cheating. But yeah, this game is totally worth it. Before we continue with the last games, consider this. Maybe you're cooking, maybe you're working, or maybe you're just watching this video intently. Either way, if you're still here, perhaps you enjoy this type of content. If you do, help me out. Give me a like on this video, maybe give it a little bit of hype. It certainly helps me grow my channel and continue to do videos like this. Speaking of which, I have a lot of videos like this out there, so if you wanted to, binge this, I would encourage you to do so. I'd appreciate it. I have other videos just like this on my channel, including another video that's about Game Boy Advance RPGs, and I'll actually link that one at the end of this video. All this is to say, maybe you should consider subscribing to my channel as I continue to make videos like this and cover RPG content. Every view, like, comment, share, all that stuff really matters for a YouTube channel, and that supports me tremendously. Thank you, friends. Let's continue. Summon Night, Swordcraft story. I was not aware about this game beyond just, the name. I'd heard it a few times, but I just didn't know much about it. I could not have picked out the gameplay from a lineup even if I tried, but apparently this game was making fans somewhere because it's a bit of a cult classic from what I've come to understand. So yeah, it's not as well known as Golden Sun or Fire Emblem, but for those who did play this game, they were blessed with a world that is appealing on so many fronts. It's one of those rare RPGs for me that has an actually enjoyable crafting system, and that's an important part of the gameplay and the story in this game. Swordcraft's story follows the apprentice of a professional craft knight and a child of a legendary craft knight that is no longer around. Your job is to be a warrior blacksmith who forges weapons and battles with them. After your father's mysterious death, you're studying and making your way deeper into the profession, and then eventually you're entered into the Craft Knight tournament, a rite of passage that determines the next Guardian of Western, and maybe that's us. We got ambition. It's a pretty standard story, right? But beneath the surface lies a secret that changes, kind of everything. The story begins as a tournament arc, a tried and true RPG trope, but it evolves into something more emotional and just bigger. It's much bigger. You choose a partner in this game and use it throughout the game, much like a Pokemon setup. It's a little Pokemon meets crafting, I guess, but completely fairy tale-like. It is wildly cutesy. Now, if you couldn't tell, I'm not crazy about Pokemon, but I certainly enjoyed these aspects of this game. Swordcraft's story does a solid job in its mix of action and resource management. Unlike most RPGs in general, combat is on a 2D plane in side-scrolling real-time battles, kind of like Tales of Fantasia, which I'm really fond of. You have to craft your own weapons, swords, axes, lances, fists, and drills, and each has distinct movesets and durability. Weapons break over time, but it's seemingly just if they're used too much in a single battle. If your weapon breaks in battle, your battle's over. They seem to reset at the end of the battle, so that's really not bad. Still, it forces you to plan ahead, experiment with materials, and adapt your playstyle. Again, I know folks who don't like this about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but it doesn't really bother me. The real charm and fun of this game is the loop of exploring dungeons, scavenging for resources, and returning to forge better gear. I absolutely love it.
Oh, is this the dagger I see before me?
It sort of reminds me of Moonlighter, actually. These systems make progress tangible, though, in a way that turn-based systems hardly ever capitalize on. By my understanding, it's not a massive game, but it feels packed. Every interaction in Western contributes to the sense of belonging. NPCs do their NPC things, and you have your rival relationship, and your guardian beast reacts to your choices, which makes them feel a little cute, but real. Even simple moments like quiet time crafting in your workshop carry some oomph to it. It's a necessary part of the experience, and it's progress, even if it doesn't always look like the progress you're used to in some more action-heavy games. The localization is fine, it's a little cheeky at times, but I enjoy it. It feels like some really super dubbed anime at times, but you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Swordcraft definitely focuses on bright color palettes and clean, expressive sprites that make its world feel surprisingly vibrant, both above and below the surface. One of the first things I noticed about the game was how much I liked the graphics. The music ranges from playful to somber, and it's actually super catchy at times. I found myself walking around the house humming bits of the music to myself. It fits the game well, too, and perfectly matches the game's vibes. While the dungeons can get a little repetitive, it's handy to have the teleports to get further in there quicker. The combat's immediacy and a constant drive to craft better weapons keeps everything rolling. Combat is a little frequent, but I absolutely love the combat. Some might find it repetitive as well, but the combination of growth in your abilities and the beautiful sprite work kept me enthralled. I never once wanted to leave a battle. Summon Night managed to merge crafting, relationship building, and action gameplay long before those ideas became genre staples. It has this gorgeous, cozy art style and an approachable tone, but it also has a pretty compelling story about legacy, about what we inherit, the bonds we forge, and the way we define our craft and ourselves.
Dear sir or madam.
Pretty powerful stuff for such a cute RPG, wouldn't you think? And it's probably the game that I had the most fun with on this list. Before this last and wildly obscure RPG, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. Of course, a major thank you to the users listed on the screen here who are Champion Bros on Patreon. You guys rock, I really appreciate that. And then of course, a huge thank you to the Hero Bros, Lee and Andrew. These guys signed up not only to support the channel, but to receive a personalized shopping gift and video with a portion of their patronage. If you're curious about how to support the channel further like this, check out the Patreon link in the description below. And lastly, the game, the most obscure one that I can come up with, by my understanding, is Robopon 2. This game launched on the Game Boy Advance in 2002 at a pretty awkward time apparently. It was late enough to be compared directly to Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, which is a savage comparison, but it was also early enough that few players realized how much more it tried to be. And that line of what it tried, I think, succeeded. But Pokemon cast, as you know, a huge shadow on anything that might even remotely look like it. I mean, as evidenced by every other game on this list. Developed by Red Company and published by Atlas in the West, Robopon 2 took the monster collecting formula and twisted it into something that's part time travel RPG, part satirical adventure, and part mechanical tinkering experiment. It's a weird and super ambitious game, and according to the folks that were so excited to see me playing it on stream, that's what makes this game special. The story takes place in the kingdom of Magico, where you play as Cody, a young Robopon mechanic who's shipwrecked there after a mysterious event shakes the fabric of time and space. Basically, from what Geo told me in stream, this game begins at the end of the other one, the Game Boy Color games. On this Magico island, Cody determines to become the Pokemon master of this world as well. What starts as a lighthearted competition quickly becomes an epic journey through parallel timelines, ancient ruins, and a journey to collect some rocks. It's a weirdly ambitious premise, being a time travel RPG wrapped in the outer shell of a kid-friendly robot raising adventure. Robopon 2, again, labors under the disservice of being called a Pokemon clone, but it really is more than that. There are similarities, I'm not going to lie to you, but the differences are what make this game fun. Rather than catching monsters, you construct them, collecting batteries and combining them to create new monsters. Each Robopon is powered by software chips and customizable parts that affect everything from attack power to personality. They can equip items and abilities, spells, all the sorts of things to customize a robot. The modular depth of this makes it more akin to a mechanic stream rather than a Pokemon breeder thing. And this depth gives the game a satisfying sense of ownership. Much like Pokemon, much like the dragons of Bahamut Lagoon, I found myself coming to enjoy my time with my Robopon. Curse these games. I don't want to feel anything. I just want to fight my monsters. Building your perfect team requires not only finding the right parts, but understanding how their combinations interact. It's a small added, addictive layer of strategy that rewards your experimentation. This, of course, can't really take place in the Pokemon world, by my knowledge at least, as this would be pretty messed up. What if we mixed a Mr. Mime with a Garbodor? Ooh. Which, to be fair, this game is about mixing batteries, not actual Robopon. I just wanted you to take a moment and think about the horrors of a Mr. Marbodor. Combat is turn-based. Up to 4 Robopon can fight at once, and the game uses a front row back row system for tactical positioning. Attacks are flashy, often accompanied by mechanical whirs and comic book style explosions. And this makes battles feel alive, but it doesn't really push the GBA's hardware. Visually, I think Robopon 2 looks closer to a Game Boy Color game than an impressive GBA game. It's not bad per se, it's just not terribly impressive. The game has bright sprites, a clean interface design, and expressive animations that give personality to what could have been just a bunch of robots. So that's respectable. The music is surprisingly good as it captures both the childlike wonder and the dark tone of this world. There were several moments in stream that I had to stop just to comment on how good the music was. Several folks in stream were also complimenting the music. Even without having played the game before, the music feels nostalgic, and that's a difficult thing to capture. Robopon 2 has surprisingly little coverage out there. Like, what on earth? For what I've seen, it's an ambitious mix of Pokemon ideas, Robotrek ideas, and Earthbound dialogue, I guess. It's just so weird, and maybe that's why it didn't sell very well. Its only crime is that it merged time travel storytelling with creature customization years before these ideas became so common. So maybe that makes it less of a crime and more of a celebration point. It may look like a Pokemon clone, but Robopon 2 Cross version is far more than that. It's the kind of odd, ambitious experiment that only Atlas would have been wild enough to localize. Them crazy and kooky kids over at Atlas. 20 years later, I'm comfortable to tell you that what I've experienced of it makes it a hidden gem. I would have 100% played this over other Pokemon games of the day, and I'm sad that I missed out.